Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is James Finlay and I'm just here to quickly talk to you about UK Parliament and why it's important for your curriculum in your school in whatever context you're in. I'm doing this as part of my teacher ambassador training and the idea of this is to try and spread this as wide as possible. So I hope that you find this particularly useful. So this is what I'm going to be doing in this session quickly. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to try and get through it as speedily as possible. So first of all, I'm going to explore how you can raise your students' awareness of key aspects of UK Parliament. And second of all, I'm going to identify links to the curriculum and opportunities for your student to engage with UK Parliament. And then aside from that, I'm not going to take up much of your time. So why is this important? Why have I sent this to you specifically as part of either the school that I work in or a different school that's connected to my school? Well, I think it's important, but also the National Curriculum thinks it's important, and Ofsted thinks it's important. So that's why we need to look at this kind of thing. So here's two quotes from the National Curriculum and Ofsted explaining why British values are a part of our curriculum, why we have to teach about these things, and the idea that we need to provide this basis for students where they can understand fundamental British values and use that for later life. So that's why I and UK Parliament think this is particularly important. So I don't want to teach anyone to suck eggs or anything like that, but obviously I'm going to be focusing my attention to the Houses of Parliament, specifically the House of Commons and the House of Lords. There are far more things that we could talk about with Whitehall, the Cabinet, the Supreme Court and that kind of thing, but just for today I'm going to focus on that, and then I'll point you in the direction of further educational training that you can do if you want to continue that kind of journey. So here we've got a picture from Theresa May's premiership where we had the most amount of female MPs in the House of Commons and House of Lords, and they had a lovely photograph to display that. The problem with this photograph particularly is that women, even though there's 220 of them elected, they only number about 34% of people in the House of Commons. So it's not reflective of our society, and it doesn't represent what our society is about. There's many reasons for that. Lots of people point towards the murder of Joe Cox quite recently. There are lots of different reasons, but I hope that through education we can try and inspire more women, more people from BAME kind of backgrounds, more people from other minorities to come into the House of Commons, because I think that is particularly important. Now, the way I've been trying to do this in my school and the way that the House of Commons and House of Lords tell us to do this is to try and get students engaged. So there is ways of contacting your MP. Your MP will probably visit the school. Our school, Alistair Woodlands, their MP is Pauline Latham. She has been a few times to see us as part of her job as an MP, but also to try and create inspiration. So use members.parliament.uk to find your MP and try and get them engaged, because that's the best way of getting students to understand that these people represent us, because they're all very, very good at speaking as part of their job. This is the House of Commons. The House of Commons is the main representative body of our country. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail. There is plenty of training on this, and I will give you links to that if you want to do more training on what the House of Commons is. But essentially, the House of Commons is our main representation as people of this country. We vote to put our representatives into the House of Commons, and in here everything is scrutinised. So laws are created, bills are read and created in here, and once they have gone out of the House of Commons and they go to the House of Lords, which I'll speak about in a minute, they can become law, they can be changed, they can also scrutinise MPs on their jobs. So if they're part of the Cabinet or part of the government, then they have to face scrutiny in the House of Commons, and most famously the Prime Minister has to face scrutiny in the House of Commons on a Wednesday during Prime Minister's Questions, which I'm sure most people have watched. So the House of Commons is the main kind of hub of representation for most people in this country, but there are further places that you can see. Now, in the House of Commons, we have different kinds of people, the different roles. And first of all is the Speaker, who sits in the Speaker's chair. Speaker's chair is particularly kind of flamboyant in the House of Commons, but the idea is that he is the main. He currently is the main kind of lawgiver in the House of Commons. He makes sure that people don't speak out of turn, that people speak to each other properly, and the Speaker's word is final. No one can speak while the Speaker is stood, so they have total kind of control. On the furthest side on this picture, we have the governing party. At the moment, currently it's 349 MPs, although there are a couple of by-elections coming up as I record this, so that may change. Opposite the governing party, you have the opposition. The official opposition in this country is the Labour Party, currently 196 MPs. Next to them sits other members of the opposition, so we have the Scottish National Party there with 43 MPs. Further down the bench we have the Liberal Democrats with 15 MPs, and then we also have representation from other smaller parties in the House of Commons as well. So the Democratic Unionist Party from Ireland has 8, and the rest of those you can see there, but essentially these are the kind of main representation for most people in smaller kind of constituencies and areas of the country. So the total number of MPs is 650. That means we've got 650 constituencies in this country, and every constituency votes in their MP separately, and the government is made up of the most MPs that take it over the threshold of 325, which is half. So the governing party is not, you don't really vote for the Prime Minister, you vote for your representative, who is part of one of the parties that then forms a government. So that's House of Commons. If you watch Prime Minister's Questions, you'll be presented with this picture quite often. The government front bench, which is just behind the Prime Minister there in that little box, they are the people in the Prime Minister's cabinet. So the Prime Minister has people that are given specific jobs to do as part of his cabinet. And when he is speaking in Prime Minister's Questions, they usually sit on this bench here. So for example, you have the Chancellor of the Exchequer right there, Jeremy Hunt. Next to him, you've got Kemi Badenoch, who I think is the Business Secretary at the moment. You've got James Cleverly there. I think that's Suella Braverman hiding behind the water, because this is a picture that's slightly out of date. The people that sit behind the government front bench are what we call the backbenchers. There are some famous backbenchers that you may recognise, and most specifically Theresa May, who purposefully sits behind the Prime Minister. So she kind of reserves that seat every single Prime Minister's Questions. If you look further back, actually, from Theresa May, you'll see Ian Duncan Smith as well, who's a pretty important, famous backbencher. So these people are not part of the cabinet. They don't have specific jobs as part of their role in Parliament, but they are there to scrutinise and ask questions and make sure that things happen in Parliament. So that's the role of a backbencher, I suppose. Then you also, down the road, quite literally, down past the lobby that's in Parliament, you can see both houses from each other. You have this, which is the House of Lords. The House of Lords is much more decorative. It wasn't bombed during World War II, which helps. The House of Commons was. So this is much more decorative. It's got much more kind of gold elements. And in here we have the House of Lords. Now, Lords in the House of Lords are not elected. Some of them are made lords by previous prime ministers. Some of them are hereditary peers, so their parents were peers and their forebearers were peers, and they are still peers. There's 92 of those left, and the vast majority of them are kind of peers that have a specialism. So they sit for reasons that I'll explain in a moment. So in the House of Lords, you've got the Lord Speaker, who sits on the kind of, well, it looks like a little sofa over there, but it's just in the middle. It's got a name. It's called the Wool the wool something. It's not going to come to my head. Then you've got the peers from the governing party on the left-hand side of this picture. So these are peers that were Conservatives in the past, and they have been made peers as part of their kind of political journey. Then you've got the official opposition peers and the Liberal Democrat peers, etc., etc. You've got other party peers there, of which there are 66 at the moment. You've got your crossbenchers at the front. And then you've got your members of the clergy, archbishops and bishops that sit over there as well. Crossbenchers are the main kind of peers that have this, have a specialism, so have been put there for a reason, to do with their kind of past life. Currently, there's about 800 peers. This number changes really often because either peers unfortunately die or there's more peers that are made part of the House of Lords, but currently it's around 800. It's 792, I think, is the last number that was kind of counted. Now, those peers that I said that have got a specialism, they come from lots of different places. So like us, they may have come from education, they may have come from a science background, they may have come from an arts background. In fact, one of the peers that we spoke to when I did my training for a teacher ambassador was a theatre director for much of her life. So yep, we've got sport peers. Ian Botham currently is a peer, who's a very, very famous cricketer, if you've never heard of him. Medicinal peers, peers from charities, armed forces, etc. And like I say, the idea of the House of Lords, they don't create bills. They can create bills, but they don't block bills particularly. They will rewrite them, they will scrutinise them, they will make sure that the bills are ready. If the bills that have been presented to them by the House of Commons are in the governing parties' manifestos from previous elections, then they're kind of duty bound to make those laws, generally without change. That's called the Salisbury Convention. But generally they will check them. They will make sure that they kind of work, rewrite different parts of the bills, make sure it's legally sound, and then send it off to the person that will stamp their name on it. It's called royal assent because the person that stamps their name on it is this man. This is the King of England, currently the head of state, and they have the final kind of signature on the bills. The role of the king is much mainly just a ceremonial one. They ensure that Parliament runs smoothly, but they don't do particularly much apart from sign their name on the bills and meet the Prime Minister every week. As you can see here, they are wearing their full regalia. This is a picture from the state opening of Parliament. At the state opening of Parliament, the King will read a speech that is prepared for him by the cabinet of the governing party. So the King doesn't write the King's speech. Actually, it's written for him by the government, which is why probably he doesn't look very pleased about what he's reading here, because he's had problems with Rishi Sunak in the past, as I'm sure you've seen. Now, as well as the House of Commons and the House of Lords, MPs also take part in select committees. Select committees are essentially kind of inquiries that are made to check something or to look into something that's happened, or to kind of push the government in one direction or another and create some guidance that the government should follow. Committees, there is, for example, the International Development Committee. They're doing an inquiry on achieving zero hunger by 2030. If you wanted to do that, that date's already passed, but there are plenty of different committees that you can submit evidence to. Anybody can submit evidence to a select committee, and that actually could be quite a good lesson if you find something quite interesting for students in there. If you go to committees.parliament.uk, you can see the current list of inquiries that are being considered and are sitting, and evidence can be submitted there. More specifically for our students, there is the Youth Select Committee as well. The Youth Select Committee meet less regularly, but this year they're going to be focusing on mental health, lowering the voting age to 16, and cost of living. And again, you can submit evidence to those Youth Select Committees. The previous link that was on the slide will also work for that as well. Once again, I'll stick all these links in the email that I'm going to send out with this video anyway, so you should be able to find them if you want to do that. Another way you can get students involved is through petitions. So you can start or sign e-petitions on the government website, petition.parliament.uk will take you there. If you submit a petition, it does have to be checked for standards, and it does have to be scrutinised by a specific select committee, the petitions committee. So it may be that it doesn't get accepted, but you can go there and sign petitions. You can encourage students to sign petitions as well. And if there is something that students really are really interested in, they can submit their own petitions to that as well. Anybody can. So as part of those petitions, you can contact your MP. And members of the House of Lords can support you through those committees. An example of a young person submitting a committee was June Eric Adori, who contacted her MP to support her campaign to keep the topic of feminism as an ideology on the A-level government and politics syllabus. And as a government and politics teacher, I can tell you it still is one of the ideologies. So she was successful in her campaign. The petition worked. A committee sat about it, debated it. She was also taken to the House of Commons to see what was going on, and they have kept it as part of the A-level syllabus. So these things can change. It can change legislation, can change things for young people. If a petition gets 10,000 signatures, then it has to be looked at as part of a committee, and there has to be a response made by the committee. If it gets 100,000 signatures, then it can be debated in the House of Commons. So very useful thing to do, and a good way of getting students involved. There is also the UK Youth Parliament. The UK Youth Parliament, they meet a couple of times a year. Any student 11 to 18 can become a member of the UK Youth Parliament. Obviously, it involves an election, and again, it's worth looking up if you've got really interested students. It can be a big springboard into their kind of politics education. There is more CPD for teachers, and like I said, I will stick links for these e-learning classes for you. There's videos, there's also reading and questions and that kind of thing. It's a pretty typical CPD. They are pretty good. They give you a good base level knowledge, much better than I could do. So I've provided the links for those in that email as well. So if you want to learn more about these things, feel free to go and do those wonderful bits of CPD. I would recommend them. I have done them in the past, and then they took me to applying for this teacher ambassador course, which has been absolutely brilliant. So well worth doing, in my opinion. So the last thing for me to say is thank you very much for watching. Thank you for taking some of your time to do this and watch my presentation on this. It really means a lot, and if you could, it would really mean a lot to me if you could email me with just a quick sentence or two about if you found the training useful, and if there's something specific that you found particularly useful in the training. I have to submit this as evidence to the UK Parliament as part of the UK Teacher Ambassador Programme. So any comments I can use for that, and it gives me a massive kind of boost on that, because it allows me to prove that I've had this reach. If you're not part of my school as well, the UK Teacher Ambassador Programme is open. They don't usually take people from the same school, which is why I say that. But if you fancy, it's a 3-day residential course in London. It's really good. Genuinely one of the best things I've done. You get to meet the Speaker of the House of Commons, ask them a question if you want to. You get to meet Lords, you get to meet members of Parliament. So if you fancy doing that as well, I would genuinely recommend it. It is so useful. It's not just open secondary school, it's open to primary and further education. So anyone can take part, and all travel and accommodation costs are covered, and the course is free. So definitely something worth doing if your school will allow you to have 3 days out. So thank you so much. Like I said, I'll put all the links in the email. If you could send me that couple of sentences to say why you find this useful. That would be amazing. And thank you once again for watching. Goodbye.